Vaults of Terra. My name is Ed and today we will be looking specifically at the weaponry used by the Eldar in this video. Many of the designs for the weapons used by the Eldar can date back tens of thousands of years, some even hundreds of thousands of years before the rise of human civilization on Terra. As with my other armory videos, I'd like to make it clear it is difficult to find images specifically of each individual type of weapon, so please excuse the lack of variety in some of the images shown. Looking at the close combat weapons of the Eldar, the biting blade is first on our list. It is a narrow type of two-handed chainsword used by striking Scorpion aspect exarchs. It uses monomolecular sharpened teeth to cut through armour and bone easily, and is a very powerful weapon in the hands of an exarch. Next up is the chain saber, again used by striking Scorpion exarchs. These chain blades are paired with a gauntlet containing twin-linked shuriken pistols, which can fire into an enemy before a swing, weakening their defences before a strike and causing damage at range. The standard chainsword is also used by the Eldar, namely the striking Scorpions, though their version is much more lightweight, using exotic materials and motors that allow it to heighten the power and strength of an Eldar warrior without weighing them down, as a chain blade from another race would. Next up is the Dire Sword, a power sword used by the Dire Avengers exarchs that contains a soul stone. This soul stone contains the spirit of a fallen Eldar, and when an enemy is struck, the spirit will try to overwhelm the enemy's mind, killing them instantly. Next is the Executioner, a power glaive used by an exarch of a Howling Banshee squad, with its near monomolecular blade slicing open opponents with ease. The Fist of 100 Blades is another close combat weapon composed of long, scythe-looking blades that can be attached to the forearm of an Eldar warrior, usually a striking Scorpion, and can cause brutal close combat damage when combined with an Eldar's natural grace and agility. Next up is the large power weapons known as Ghost Weapons, the Ghost Axe, Ghost Glaive and Ghost Sword respectively. Ghost Axes and Ghost Swords are large weapons used by the constructs known as Wraith Blades, their arcane power helping to guide a strike to an opponent's weakest spot. A Ghost Glaive is a very large weapon designed to fight even the greatest demons of chaos, and is wielded by the Wraith Knight and the Wraith Lord constructs to great effect. Wielded by the Howling Banshee exarchs, Mirror Blades are next on our list, though very little is known about their details. They are most likely a type of power weapon, used in pairs in order to compensate for their slightly shortened length, and provide a deadly flurry of blades when wielded by this close combat specialist exarch. The Scorpion's Claw is another weapon used by the striking Scorpion exarchs, and is a shuriken catapult combined with a gauntlet, giving the exarch range and power without reducing their close combat prowess and allowing them to wield a weapon with both hands. A Shining Spear is a force weapon used by the Warlocks and Farseers of the Eldar race. Psychic specialists, more powerful than most other races' psykers, their weapons are equally as powerful, containing massive amounts of psychic power locked into the blade. Its blade can take on many hues, but it is usually silver and emits a resonating hum when held by a psyker. A powerful weapon in close combat, it can also be thrown, using the psyker's powers to both direct the blade in flight and return it to the psyker's hands once its damage has been done. They are heavily built weapons, especially for the lighter framed Eldar, and so are usually wielded alone. Next is the Triskel, a Howling Banshee weapon used by exarchs. It's a large three-armed, scythe-bladed weapon that can be thrown to dismember enemies at range before returning like a boomerang to its owner in order to be used in close combat. Next up is the Wailing Doom, or Swain Dele. It is a weapon used by the avatars of Cain, whose name derives from the screaming and wailing the blade makes when it strikes the Eldar's enemies. It can take the form of a massive sword, spear or axe. It can slice through even the thickest armour, cutting its enemies to pieces. It can also emit blasts of searing psychic energy at short range, burning the enemies to ash before moving on to its next victim. It is renowned for its power against the flesh of demons, cutting through the Eldar's ancient enemies as easily as it does the armour of a battle tank. Our penultimate close combat weapon is the Witchblade, another force weapon used typically by Eldar Warlocks. This is a rune-encrusted sword with helix crystal psychic matrices embedded directly in the blade, magnifying the user's psychic powers through the blade, causing a vast amount of damage. Like the Seeing Spear, the weapon can be thrown to inflict damage at range, but must be wielded with two hands to be used effectively in combat. The final close combat weapon is a Witch Staff, used by Warlocks and Farseers. If struck by this staff, the enemy has a chance to have their soul literally set aflame, burning them to ash with a fire they cannot extinguish. Now we move on to the ranged weapons of the Eldar, usually wielded by individuals. The first up is the D-Scythe, also known as the Distortion Scythe. It is an advanced weapon that uses a rare and powerful vortex effect to cause massive amounts of damage. It is a sinister and taboo weapon for the Eldar, as it can literally rip souls from the user's enemies and cast them into the warp, a truly horrifying death for many, whilst leaving all inorganic or soulless materials intact. It is most often used by the Wraith Guard, and it is considered an ancient religious taboo among the Eldar for someone to cut the soul of another from their body, so the weapon is rarely used, though now more militant Altarks are calling for their more frequent use. It also has a heavier variant that was designed to be used on Tyranids and even the Necrons, ripping their mechanical minds from their unliving bodies. Flamers are the next weapon to be used by the Eldar, using the ancient principles of combustion augmented by Eldar technology to make it a highly efficient device for dealing with light infantry in enclosed spaces. Next up is the monofilament weapon known as the Death Spinner, used by the Warp Spider Aspect Warriors as an offensive and ritual weapon. Nicknamed a spinner, it spools up at high speed using magnetic containment to hold and fire out webs of single molecular chains, also known as monofilament wire. The spinner cloud of monomolecular wire that is fired out at high speed can rip through an enemy's armour and flesh, leaving them as bloodied husks as the Warp Spider moves on to the next target. Even power armour is little defence against such weapons, especially if taken by surprise. Larger variants of this weapon are the Death Shroud cannon used on certain Wraith Knights and can be adjusted for wider or more condensed fire patterns, and the Doomweaver, used on the Knight Spinner Grav-Tank. This variant can shoot monofilament wire into the air, allowing it to float across the battlefield, cutting all those caught in the web to pieces. Its smaller cousin, the Shadow Weaver, often does the same thing, though this weapon is mounted to a Grav platform rather than a tank and has a lesser range and coverage. Next up are the fusion weapons, an analogue of the Imperium's melter technology, namely the Fire Pike, the Fusion Gun, and a Fusion Pistol. The Fusion Gun is used by many Fire Dragon Aspect Warriors, along with Storm Guardian units, and is a fusion weapon that can reduce a battle tank to a pile of molten slag in moments, but has a limited range. The Fire Pike, wielded by the Fire Dragon Exarchs, is a long-range version of the Fusion Gun, though it takes skill to aim effectively, and a Fusion Pistol, used as a sidearm but mainly by high-ranking Eldar and Harlequins. The next available weapon is the Haywire Launcher, which is a type of grenade launcher used by Shadow Spectre Exarchs, launching what are essentially electromagnetic pulse grenades that deal significant damage to vehicles and technology such as power armour, but do little to the lightly armoured infantry who have a small amount of technology on them. The Las Blaster, an Eldar analogue for the Imperial Las Gun, is a much more effective and rapid-firing weapon, which is used mainly by the Swooping Hawk Aspect Warriors. It has a more powerful variant known as the Hawk's Talon, used by Swooping Hawk Exarchs, and also a Sun Rifle, a much more powerful weapon that can emit laser blasts to destroy enemy squads, and also sometimes used by Swooping Hawk Exarchs. Another variant laser weapon is the Laser Lance, used by the Shining Spears Aspect Warriors mounted on jet bikes. These weapons are short range, almost to the point of being close combat weapons, and are designed to be combined with high-speed movement to inflict significant damage on an enemy whilst the rider speeds away. There is a variant known as a Star Lance used by Shining Spear Exarchs, providing much more power and range, though great skill is needed to use it effectively. The Rangers of the Eldar use a weapon known as a Long Rifle, the equivalent of an Imperial Long Las. It has superior damage and range, with sights that allow a ranger to target the armour's weak spot even if encased in solid power armour. They also use needle sniper rifles, which have a poisoned load and can deliver that ammunition over long range, able to reduce even the greatest warrior to a calling corpse with little effort. Next up are the prism weapons, namely the prism rifle, the blaster, and the cannon. This is an old and antique weapon, which uses highly focused energy through the eponymous crystal prism, mounted on or in the weapon. The laser produced by this weapon can rip through large targets with ease. The rifles are used by Shadow Warriors, the pistol by Exarchs, whilst the cannon is used by the Fire Prism Grav-Tank. Next are the famous shuriken weaponry, a trademark that are used by the Eldar, divided into the pistol, the Murek, in the Eldar tongue, the catapult, or Tulin, and the cannon variants. All these variants are built around a gravitic accelerator similar to what allows an Imperial Landspeeder its flight. It also contains a solid core of plasticrystal in the weapon's magazine. High-energy pulses slice off monomolecular discs of this material from the solid core, then accelerate them at high speed through the rifle's barrel. In burst fire mode, hundreds of these discs can be fired in seconds, blanketing the area ahead of the rifle with razor-sharp fire. Each clip allows for 10 or more of these kinds of bursts before requiring reloading. Though the weapons can be brutal, this method of fire means the barrels cannot be rifled, so the accuracy and range of the shurikens fired from these weapons can be lower range to many Imperial solid projectile weaponry. There is also a variant catapult named the Avenger Catapult, which has a longer barrel and modified firing chamber to offer greater range and accuracy, at the cost of complexity, and is usually given only to Dire Avenger Aspect Warriors to use. The pistol is obviously a smaller variant, whilst the cannon being a larger variant with a much more rapid rate of fire. The final ranged weapon I will be mentioning is the Wraith Cannon, similar to the D Cannon that I will mention in a moment. This weapon opens a rift to the warp and pulls its enemies apart, though it is much more accurate than the aforementioned weapon. Due to their size and nature, only Wraith Guards can use these weapons in two hands, though the heavier versions are mounted on Eldar vehicles. Moving on to the heavy weaponry, usually mounted to vehicles, weapons platforms, or carried by specialist soldiers. The first weapon to mention is the Eldar's most powerful laser-based weapon, the Bright Lance, operating much like the Imperium's las cannon. However, the beam of the Bright Lance is much more condensed and efficient, allowing it to bore through even the toughest armour as if it were actually much weaker material, the condensed beam also improving the weapon's efficiency. Next up is the D Cannon, which I've briefly mentioned before. Similar to the D Scythe by operating on vortex technology, this larger weapon is known as a displacer cannon, a displacer, a distortion cannon, a warp cannon, and a warper. It is a terrifying weapon when fired, tearing open a portal to the warp on the same principles as Imperial starships travelling with a portal resembling a black hole, forming and momentarily pulling everything towards it. Anything in a weapon's blast radius is pulled into the warp and is ripped apart, and even things outside the radius can be damaged or distorted by this rift opening. If the target is lucky, death is instantaneous. If not, death can be slow and agonising as their bodies are pulled apart by the warp distortion, or even sucked into the warp to become the playthings of the entities that live in that realm. Despite its power, the D cannon is short range and quite inaccurate, causing problems if needed at range or in close infantry support. Increasing the weapon size will increase its range and power, with the largest being mounted on Imperial Titans, where the portals created by these cannons can rip through even enemy Titans' void shields easily to damage the Titan on the other side. Moving on from the D cannon, an Inferno cannon is a huge variant of the fire pike used by the fire dragons, and is also designed to work with Wraith Knights to damage other large-scale units such as Knights or Titans. The Eldar also use missile launchers like many other races, using complex chambered pods to fire crack and plasma warheads, allowing for continuous fire and preventing the need to reload as often as Imperial models. It can also fit dozens of warheads into a single weapon. Although they can be used by hand, many are mounted to Grav platforms for greater manoeuvrability. A variant of this is the Phoenix missile launcher used by Eldar air combat units and are able to carpet a large area with missile fire. Next up is the Pulsar, a Titan weapon also fitted to super heavy tanks. It is a high-powered variant of the Bright Lance, used against super heavy targets. Its largest variant, the Phantom Titan Pulsar, is feared across the galaxy for its ability to cut through enemy units as if they were hot knives through butter. The Pulse Laser is another variant of Eldar laser weaponry, with this weapon able to pump out huge numbers of shots that work efficiently against enemy infantry, though it uses a much lower powered beam than the Bright Lance. Next is the Reaper launcher used by the Dark Reaper Aspect Warriors. It is a form of smaller scale missile launcher that operates in a similar manner to the Space Marine Bolter. It rapidly fires self-propelled armor-piercing missiles at its targets. It is a heavy weapon but uses anti-gravity pods to reduce its weight to be wielded by a lone warrior. Its variant, the Torrent, carries additional ammo at the cost of extra weight. The weapon known as the Psychic Lance is the largest scale psychic weapon used by the Eldar Knights. Using a crystal matrix, the weapon can be used to remove the aggressiveness from the opposing forces, causing immense mental damage before other weapons are used to finish off the enemy. The Scatter Laser is a 6-chambered laser weapon that acts much like the Imperium's multi-laser, able to achieve multiple hits on infantry or light armour in a short time, and can do a great deal of damage, being much higher in efficiency than its Imperial analogue. Next is the Star Cannon, a rare plasma-based weapon used by the Eldar. Like the Imperial plasma weapons, it encases hydrogen-based plasma in an electromagnetic field, then fires it at great speed towards the enemy. Unlike Imperial models, although the plasma bolt is as bright as a star on the battlefield, the shields and buffers inside the weapon prevent overheating and keep the weapon cool to the touch after firing. Its larger variant, the Sun Cannon, is also used on Wraith Knights. Finally, I'll talk about the Vibro Cannon. Based on sonic technology, this weapon emits pulses of sound from sub to hypersonic frequencies, which cause resonance within the weapon's targets, and can literally cause an enemy to vibrate to pieces. The more pulses impacting on a point, the more rapid and wide-scale the destruction, with multiple Vibro Cannons able to reduce any enemy target to pieces. The larger variant of the Vibro Cannon is the Sonic Lance, mounted to tanks to shake the enemy heavy armour to pieces and can flatten any infantry in its way. The Eldar also use a wide variety of grenade. This includes the Hallucinogen grenade, which releases an invisible gas that plays with the minds of those who inhale it, with a variety of effects ranging from a temporary vacant state to a paranoid and destructive psychosis. There is the Haywire grenade that operates much like the Haywire launcher, emitting blasts of EMP to damage and destroy equipment. They also use melter bombs that operate on fusion technology rather than melter technology, and finally use plasma grenades, a fearsome weapon that harnesses the same plasma reaction as an Imperial plasma gun. These grenades use a dispersed blast designed to be used against infantry in place of a crude frag weaponry used by other races. So that is everything I wanted to mention about Eldar weaponry today. We'll be moving on to other races' armories in the future. However, I do want to mention that next week we will actually be doing a rehash of original video. This will be the introduction video that we made nearly 6 years ago on this channel, and I felt it could use an update in order to explain the Warhammer 40,000 universe again in clearer terms and also with clearer audio quality. I also want to ask what everyone wants to see next. I made it very clear recently that I am interested in hearing what the community has to say, because obviously I am deciding mainly on the topics by myself, but it would be nice to see what people are interested in, considering my recent videos have had quite a lower view count, and that might be due to YouTube's algorithm, but it might also be because people may be losing interest in the content, and I want to keep things interesting for people whilst still covering the topics that need to be covered. So let me know what you want below. Obviously I can't make more videos, I'm sorry, that's just a timescale issue and I tried to get around it but I can't. Otherwise, that's everything I have to say today. See you next time on the Vaults of Terra.